Call the clerk.
Government business, order of the day number 1, Governor-General's opening speech, resumption of debate on the proposed address and reply.
The question is that the address be agreed to, and I call the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, by all accounts, Vida Goldstein made her mark in 1902 as the first Aussie to visit a US president in the White House. Prominent abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison described the suffragette as carrying a youthful, audacious, unrestrained and free spirit, embracing Australia's absence of an immemorial shackle against progress. This is the spirit that I bring to my second term in the House of Representatives, and I thank the people of Goldstein for the privilege and their trust. Deputy Speaker, you can't represent Goldstein if you are not fiercely proud of your liberalism. On 18 May, Goldstein voted for a forward-looking, modern liberalism that reflects our community's values to shape the direction of the nation. Sir Robert Menzies understood that defining Australia's future is not a choice between the accelerator of progressivism and the brake of conservatism. It is a choice about whether we want to steer either to a socialist or liberal future. Menzies knew that for Australian liberalism to enjoy social licence, it must be built on the pillars of freedom, justice and responsibility, empowering individuals, families and communities in pursuit of national and economic social progress. Menzies knew Australia needed a liberalism built on pluralism and respect, recognising there are a lot of people who will encounter who think that there ought to be a species of drab uniformity. This passion for uniformity is not to be encouraged. What we need in Australia is that every person coming from some particular race or faith who comes into the Australian community should retain their quality in that sense, but it should add to the qualities of all the other people. Menzies' modern liberalism fostered equal opportunity and social mobility, while safeguarding dignity and respecting sacrifice, delivering intergenerational justice through economic, social and environmental stewardship, from not only between those who are living, but between those who are living, those who are dead, and those who are to be born. Menzies' audacious modern liberalism was captured in his 1965 address to the Liberal Party's Federal Conference. The effect of this forward thinking, this liveliness, this being modern, being prepared to be a little adventurous, we have won because we are not the party of the past, not the Conservative Party dying hard on the last barricade, but the party of innovations. These were the innovations, the evidence of a lively mind and a forward-looking heart. He finished by saying, "This is the whole of the thing that we must remember and that we must continue to remember and act on in the years to come." The years to come have arrived. Menzies' word of 54 years ago call us to the restoration of this vision and to bring these values alive in contemporary debates. They are more contemporary than ever. In the past 2 years, Australians have had two opportunities to vote for the type of country they want to be. First, for a forward-looking social liberal agenda, and for a lower tax economic liberal agenda, and both were in the affirmative. But there is more work to be done. Liberals strengthen citizens and communities, not centralised capitals or corporates. This should be the anchor by which we approach Indigenous Australians seeking self-determination through their freedom to take responsibility. One of the most unifying developments of recent years has been the integration of Indigenous history, culture and symbols and language into our national civic life. It's a yearning to recognise that we are all part of the continuum of this continent's journey and story through empowerment and the pursuit of national unity. As Indigenous leader Rachel Perkins argued, the pathway to reconciliation can be a two-way mirror. We acknowledge you, you acknowledge us. We become one. As we say in the Aranata country, one land, one mob. Deputy Speaker, last term we turned Liberal values into action. Among many achievements, we incentivised investment and cut taxes, leading to the creation of more than 1,000 new jobs a day. New PBS listings for medicines brought the frontiers of biomedical research to the bedside. We empowered working parents through childcare reform and secured Australia's future by building 50 new ships through our defence industry plan. From the backbench, we led the abandonment of the China extradition treaty, and as evidenced by recent events in Hong Kong, of which I have witnessed, this was the most significant yet unremarked event of the last parliament. We took a strong stand against the politics of race and one nation who drape themselves in the flag and concurrently fan social division with the purpose of empowering themselves at the expense of our national unity. We succeeded in having government adopt an objective stand of harassment to limit the possible excesses of Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. We redefined proposals to confront the inequity of unlimited tax-free income and superannuation while encouraging sacrifice and saving for a secure retirement for millions of Australians. We secured greater medical privacy protection for the My Health record system. With the Australian people, we delivered marriage equality, and I'm sure fellow Rainbow rebels are proud of the journey we took to enlarge the freedom for couples to make voluntary commitments of mutual respect. And we stood up to Labor's smear campaign to shut down the Economic Committee's inquiry on refundable franking credits. Our inquiry gave Australians a platform to voice their opposition to Labor's insidious attempt to steal the overpaid tax of nearly 1 million Australian retirees and low-income earners. At the last election, the Goldstein Liberal team ran on 3 pillars. First, lower taxes. We promised a plan for lower taxes and we have already delivered it. You should keep more of what you earn. You should have the freedom to choose, not have your choices dictated to you by people in this chamber. It's your money, not ours. Second, retirement security. And at the election, retirees saw their bank balance on the ballot. Retirement security depends on certainty, and the re-election of a coalition government stopped Labor's retiree tax, and we will deliver on our promise not to change superannuation taxes for the life of this parliament. Third, improving lifestyle. Goldstein, Deputy Speaker, is a residential retreat. While lacking much industry, we are industrious. Every day, thousands of residents grow small businesses and commute to professional jobs. They don't want government to solve their problems. They want a government which protects their rights while improving their quality of life. Our government will deliver, having committed $24.5 million for Bayside and Glen Ira to develop hundreds of new car parking spaces at local railway stations to ease daily commutes. Every parent wants to see their child succeed, and we're backing the next generation of Australians by delivering record public, Catholic and independent school funding. And we're addressing the inequity faced by young women in sporting infrastructure through an additional $4.7 million investment in a new regional netball facility in Sandringham, as well as many other local investments in sporting grounds. That's in addition to our record investment in local hospitals and full Medicare licensed MRIs at Cabrini Brighton and Holmes Glen Moorabbin. Our lifestyle also comes from stewarding our local environment and protecting the health of Port Phillip, and taking proportionate action to safeguard the climate. The Coalition has twice taken Australia's commitments to cut emissions under the Paris Agreement to an election, and voters expect it to be honoured through a range of measures to lead the transition of the energy grid and to improve industrial energy efficiency through our Energy Productivity Plan, and we will deliver it. Our local cities of Glen Ira and Bayside are leading the way by enabling residents to recycle their food waste as part of a holistic package for the country. Port Phillip already faces challenges from pollutants, water quality and coastal erosion, and we can show how local leadership can deliver environmental outcomes of national importance. Deputy Speaker, recently a Labor MP said the worst thing he could do is mislead workers, and the same is true of Liberal MPs to citizens. Put simply, business as usual won't secure another 29 years of uninterrupted economic growth. At elections, governments seek mandates based on a specific set of circumstances, and from time to time, events provide their own. In those situations, governments are rarely judged by the circumstances that they find themselves in. They are judged by their response. And as Chair of the House Economics Committee again, I carry a responsibility to lead discussions on the economic health of the nation, and will. The environment we presently find ourselves in is one which is highly exposed to external shocks, with high public and private debt, limited fiscal levers and very low interest rates. At the beginning of this term, I deliberately communicated my concern about the Reserve Bank continuing to cut interest rates. In 2012, the RBA identified low rates are an increasingly fraught stimulus strategy. Retirees have more interest-bearing assets, and households with a large amount of interest-bearing assets may also adjust their spending in response to a change in interest rates. Interest-bearing assets are expected to grow over the time as population ages, and it has continued on that trajectory. Most people approach policy and politics based on their stage of life. Over time, the youthful desire for opportunity gradually turns to a desire for security, as people look to their retirement with an aspiration for independence, dignity and choice. The recent focus on the impact of deeming rates on disposable income highlights this point. Some are rightly now correctly questioning the wisdom of cutting rates and following the rest of the world down the economic sinkhole of the low interest rate growth path. As one observer noted, the derivatives markets expect the cash rate to average below 1% for the next 5 years, and we're now there. This is, of course, now seeming optimistic. Deliberate cultivation of higher debt through low interest rates is one-way journey with scant opportunity for U-turn. Security to older Australians is akin to opportunity for younger Australians to get a good education, a rewarding job, and to buy a home and raise a family. Yet that is compromised when monetary policy is inflating house prices, thereby making it harder for young Australians to get their first foothold into the property ladder. The RBA's own model of the Australian housing market identifies that much of the strength in housing prices and construction over the past few years can be explained by the fall in interest rates. And as Menzies understood himself, our people are entitled to good homes at a cost which bears some proper relation to their earnings. What we also know is that rising house prices denies a disproportionate share of the nation's scarce capital from investment in productive activities and needlessly eats into the economic equity of the nation. Disturbingly, the legitimacy of quantitative easing has been socialised, and, as Rupert Murdoch argued in 2014, quantitative easing increases the price of assets such as stocks and real estate, and that has helped first and foremost those who already have assets. A 2018 study from Wei Q and Vincent Stirk from University College London concluded that, quote, QE comes with strong side effects on inequality, which can substantially lower social welfare.
A division is being called for in the House. The proceedings are suspended to enable honourable members to attend the division. The proceedings will resume when the Chair of the Federation Chamber is resumed at the conclusion of the division or subsequent divisions.
Federation Chair is now resumed. The member for Goldstein has the call.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. If introduced in Australia's current economic environment, it will keep asset prices high for those who've had to go, to be paid for by higher prices of those who want to go. Most people view the tax system through a specific prism based on what is contributing horizontally across today's societal spread, according primarily to income. A modern liberal tax system would also reflect the vertical contribution across people's stages of life and respect the need for intergenerational equity and the assistance parents provide for their vulnerable children, as well as when the situation is reversed. To quote the Productivity Commission, on average, families in the under 60 age groups pay $15,300 more per year in taxes than they receive in transfers. By contrast, families in the 60-plus age group receive an average of $10,900 more in transfers than they pay in taxes. In total, families in the 60-plus age group account for 51% of all transfer expenditure. The data is just the symptom, it is not the cause. The rise of transfers is being driven by rising healthcare and pharmaceutical benefit scheme costs at the most expensive stage of people's lives, along with the increasing demands for pension and aged care support. We should respect that older Australians have paid taxes all throughout their life and at different rates to today, but not through the tax bondage on the next generation which constrains their freedom to choose. With nearly half of all federal taxes coming from income, the only solution governments have found is to increase migration of working-age people to help shoulder the increasing expenditure burden, putting economic, infrastructure and environmental pressure on our nation and contributing to perception that our economic model is fundamentally flawed. One of our strengths is that Australia has found peace and prosperity as an open economy and liberal society, but the lessons of human history educate us on its fragility. The cost of inaction will hit every Australian in the form of lower growth, higher unemployment and structural imbalances that favour the established against the aspirational. With many states failing to use their stamp duty windfalls during property price peaks to rebase their taxation receipts, the Commonwealth has an opportunity to put new revenue sources on the table to redress the legacy of vertical fiscal imbalance. As Charles Adams wrote in his inspirational tome For Good and Evil, The Impact of Taxes on the Course of Civilization, taxes which touch a broad range of economic activities, even with equal rates, will inevitably be mildly progressive. The challenge we collectively face is one of exposure. Resulting from the United States' embrace of quantitative easing in the past, comparable economies have had no choice but to exhaust their monetary policy options as well. Their balance sheets are also thin, with little left in the fiscal tank. Meanwhile, structural reform is politically challenging, and the dividend is slow and diffused. It is low GI. Yet redress of structural imbalances inevitably lead you to a modern liberal economic reform vision for the 21st century, one which works to confront the productivity challenges of a modern Australia in a competitive global economy. On tax, flattening discrepancies between income, company and capital gains tax, as well as broadening the use of consumption taxes that multinational businesses and individuals pay across the business and life cycle. On energy, embracing the fact that debate is no longer defined solely by the price of a fuel, but by the combination of the risks to return from long-run investments that are exposed to finance network risks, as well as an environmental legacy footprint. On industrial relations, moving away from a confrontational model that assumes employers want fewer employees, to a system that understands businesses' greatest struggle is the hiring and retention of talent by having a system designed to ease hire over constraining legitimate fire. Deputy Speaker, none of us stand here alone. To the Goldstein campaign team, led by Campaign Director Gavin McCreadys, with Harvey Allett, Hannah Hartney, Hannah Faye Bushby, Josephine Goss and Greg Wills, we give thanks. The Goldstein Executive, led by Chair Ian Farrow, with Greg Cheeseman, Jason Berwick-Lewis, Carolyn Brown, Jan Cooper, Simon Farrow, Vicky Grove, Frank Papa, Diane Ravel, Peter Snedden and Jennifer Gaskell, as well as Louis and Ella, who never strayed from their pug ambassadors-in-chief duties. To the party members, campaigners, booth captains and workers with donors that form the front line of Australia's political defence. To the SMS whisperers of Daniel Bevan, Mike Poutney, Susie Bartlett, Constantine Francescos and my brother Simon, who always give me a laugh and inspiration. To Tim Wildash, Michael Stilwell, Nicholas Healy, Sean Levin, Jeanette Rawlinson, Pete Gaunt, Colleen Harkin, Sean Gross and Bayside Forum members. And the Goldstein office team, Claire Hewitt-Kennedy, Kristen Vidovich and Amy Green, as well as Mason Sugars, Kurt Fong and Daniel Redmond, Cale de Brossack, Sandra Tomlinson, Susan Vale, Tara Whitehead, Penny Lanigan, Thomas Morrissey, Angela Gledhill, Daniel Elberg, Andrew Priestley and Zach August. And particularly to James Stevens, who organised our nationwide refundable franking credits inquiry and local re-election campaign concurrently. Thank you. We all share this journey together. Finally, thanks to my husband, Ryan. In my first speech, I reflected that no matter what happens from here, we have already achieved more than many who come and go from this place, because we have lived the change we seek in the world. Here happened, and we live these words together, and we are only warming up. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
I thank the member for Goldstein.